He moved in after my surgery. That's the simplest way to say it, but it leaves out how carefully it all unfolded, how slow it felt in the moment, how fast it looks in hindsight. My name doesn't matter much here. Let's just say I was 45, single, and thought I had my life more or less under control. I owned a small house. I had a decent job, a modest retirement account, some savings. Nothing glamorous, but enough that I slept okay at night. Then I got sick. It started with pain I tried to ignore. I pushed through workdays with a heating pad and painkillers, because that's what you do when you're used to being the responsible one. By the time I went to the doctor, they were using words like major surgery and recovery period and you'll need help at home. I remember sitting in the hospital room after the operation. The air smelled like antiseptic and plastic. I was groggy and sore and very aware of how alone I was. My parents were gone. My brother lived across the country. Friends texted, they sent flowers, but they had kids and jobs and their own lives. That's the headspace I was in when I met Ethan. He wasn't some stranger off the street. He was a neighbor's friend. My next-door neighbor, Lisa, had been checking on me before the surgery. She knew I'd be coming home to an empty house. The day I was discharged, she brought someone with her. She said, "This is Ethan. He helped me when I had my knee surgery last year. He's good with all this stuff." He had this warm, easy smile. Brown hair, a little messy. Clean t-shirt, jeans, hands that looked like he actually did things with them. He said, "I figured I could help Lisa get you settled. I don't want you trying to do too much." He carried my bag. He adjusted my pillows. He spoke to the nurse about medications like he knew what he was talking about. I remember thinking, thank God someone's here who isn't scared of this. The first few days at home were a blur of pain and sleep. I'd wake up and the light would be different. The TV would be off or on. The water glass on my nightstand would be full again. Sometimes it was Lisa. Sometimes it was Ethan. He'd knock lightly on the bedroom door. He'd say, "Are you awake? You need anything?" He made soup. He did the dishes. He took out the trash. Little things that feel huge when just getting to the bathroom feels like a trip across town. At first I told myself, this is temporary. He's just helping out for a few days. But he kept showing up. He'd bring groceries, refusing to take money. He said, "Don't worry about it. You can pay me back by getting better." He sat with me in the evenings, not pushing conversation when I was too tired, just being there. Sometimes we'd watch old shows. Sometimes he'd tell stories. He talked about his own rough patch, a bad breakup, a business that didn't work out. He said he knew what it felt like to have the rug pulled out from under you. The way he said it, it didn't feel like a line. It felt like he was trying to say, "I get it. You're not weak for needing help." After a week, he had a key. It happened so casually I almost missed it. Lisa was going out of town for the weekend to see her daughter. She said, "I'm leaving a key with Ethan so he can keep an eye on you." It made sense. I was still on pain meds. I still couldn't stand up for long without getting dizzy. So Ethan started letting himself in. He'd come in the morning to make coffee and check my meds. He'd come back in the afternoon to help me shower, keeping his eyes politely averted, joking just enough to make it less awkward. At night, he'd straighten up the living room, fluff the pillows, set the remote where I could reach it. He never made a move, never crossed a line. He was careful, respectful, patient. I started to look forward to the sound of the door unlocking. It felt less like someone doing a favor and more like company. Like I wasn't just a sick woman in a quiet house. About 3 weeks in, when I could get to the kitchen without help, he sat down at the table with me. He said, "We should talk about bills." My stomach clenched for a second. I thought he meant I owed him. He must have seen it on my face because he shook his head. He said, No, not like that. I mean your bills. Have you been able to keep up? Do you need help organizing anything?" I pulled the pile of unopened envelopes toward me. Hospital bills, insurance forms, regular utilities, all mixed together. I said, "Honestly, I've been pretending this doesn't exist." He said, "That's normal. When you're in survival mode, paperwork feels like climbing a mountain." He offered to help sort through it. We sat there for an hour while he opened things, made little stacks, wrote notes in neat handwriting. He said, "You're actually in better shape than you think." It's just a lot at once. He explained things I didn't understand. He called the insurance company on speakerphone and asked the questions I didn't know to ask. He was good at it. Calm, persistent, polite, but firm. When he hung up, he said, "You shouldn't have to do all this while you're healing. It's too much." I felt this wave of gratitude. And also this fear under it. Like I was one mistake away from everything slipping through my fingers. He saw that too. He said, my aunt went through something similar. Major surgery, alone, lots of paperwork. She ended up giving me power of attorney so I could handle the boring stuff for a while. It took a huge weight off her shoulders. He said it like he was talking about the weather. I remember the phrase sitting there between us. Power of attorney. I said, that sounds serious. He said it can be, but it doesn't have to be. It can be limited, just for finances, just while you're recovering. You can put an end date on it if you want. He shrugged. He said, it's just a tool. It lets someone you trust handle things when you can't. Right now you're vulnerable, and there are deadlines and penalties and all that. It might be easier to let someone take the reins for a bit. Someone you trust. I'd known him, a month at that point? 5 weeks? But it felt longer. It felt like he'd been there for every scary moment. Like he'd seen me at my weakest and hadn't flinched. I said, I don't know. It feels like a big step. He smiled, not pushing. He said, think about it. I'm not going anywhere. I just hate seeing you stressed when you should be focused on healing. For a few days, I did think about it. I also noticed how exhausted I got just walking from the bedroom to the mailbox. How one phone call from the hospital billing department could wipe me out for the entire afternoon. So when he brought it up again, gently, like he was half expecting me to say no, I surprised myself. I said, okay, maybe just something limited, just for bills. He lit up, but only for a second before he masked it. He said, of course. We'll get it drawn up exactly how you want. You stay in control. I'm just your right hand for a while. He knew a lawyer friend. A woman. That detail soothed me. Another woman involved. Surely it couldn't be that dangerous if she was helping. The lawyer came to my house with the documents. Ethan sat next to me while she explained. Financial power of attorney. Limited scope. Revocable. I signed. After that, I let go. I let him answer calls, forward emails, log into my accounts, just to check on things. He'd sit at my laptop while I dozed on the couch, typing quietly. He started spending the night sometimes. At first on the couch, then in my bed, once I was physically more comfortable. It felt less like someone helping and more like living together. He brought more clothes. A drawer in my dresser. A shelf in the bathroom. His jacket over the back of a chair. He changed light bulbs without being asked. Fixed a leaky faucet. Drove me to follow-up appointments. If someone had asked me then, I would have said I was lucky. I had this good man who stepped up when I needed him. It wasn't perfect. Little things pricked at me. He was vague about his own finances, about his work, about where exactly he went when he ran errands. But every time I started to worry, I'd remember the souk, the phone calls, the way he'd helped me shower when I was too weak to stand. I'd remember signing those papers and thinking he must care or he wouldn't be here. About 3 months after the surgery, I noticed he'd get tense when I'd sit down at my laptop. He'd say, "You don't need to worry about that. I checked everything this morning." If I asked to see, he'd kiss my forehead and say, "You don't trust me?" I'd feel guilty even for asking. One day, the debit card didn't work at the pharmacy. The clerk said, "It's saying declined." I laughed, embarrassed, and said, "Try it again," like that would somehow change things. Same result. I used another card. That one went through. At home, I mentioned it to Ethan. I said, "Hey, my card didn't go through today. Is there something up with that account?" He said, "Oh yeah, I moved some stuff around to cover the property tax." I should have told you. "It's fine, I've got it handled." I said, "Can we look at it together? I just want to understand what's going on." He said, "You really don't need to worry. It'll just stress you out." That was the first time his tone felt off. There was a sharpness under the sweetness. A drop it I hadn't heard before. I let it go. For a few days. Then, one afternoon when he ran out to meet a friend, I shuffled over to my desk and opened my laptop. My hands were shaking, and I told myself that was just the surgery, not fear. I opened my bank app. I stared at the screen. Savings, $1,243.18. 3 months earlier, it had been just over $60,000. My checking account was almost empty too. I actually closed the app and reopened it, like maybe it was some glitch. Same numbers. I checked my retirement account. He wasn't supposed to have access to that. He did. There were withdrawals. Hardship distributions. My throat closed. I could hear the blood in my ears. I clicked through transactions. Payments I didn't recognize. Transfers to an account I'd never seen. My name on all of it because I'd given him the power to move things around. The room felt smaller. The air felt thick. I don't know how long I sat there before I realized I was crying. Silent, ugly crying. Just water pouring out of my eyes while my body felt numb. I called his phone. Straight to voicemail. I texted him. I said, "Where are you? Call me. Now." No answer. I tried Lisa. She didn't know where he was. She sounded genuinely surprised. She said, "I thought he was with you." By the time it got dark, his jacket was still on the chair, his toothbrush still in the bathroom, his drawer still full of clothes. But somehow I knew he wasn't coming back. The police report process was humiliating. I sat there explaining to a board officer how a grown woman had handed over her financial life to a man she'd known for a few weeks because he'd been nice to her after surgery. I said he had power of attorney. He didn't technically steal. He just drained everything. The officer shrugged. He said, "You signed it. It's a civil matter. You can get a lawyer." A lawyer cost money I didn't really have anymore. They took the report, but I could tell nobody expected anything to happen. I spent the next few months in this surreal mix of physical recovery and financial freefall. I went back to work part-time because I had to. I called banks, begged for lower payments, explained and re-explained my situation. Every time I told the story, I felt smaller. I kept thinking about that first bowl of soup. The way he'd stirred it, carefully blowing on the spoon before handing it to me. How safe I'd felt in that moment. I think that's what hurt the most. Not just the money. The part of me that had relaxed. That had let someone else take the lead. I don't tell you this so you'll sit there and think, I would never do that. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you'd see the red flags faster than I did. But I also know what it's like to be weak and scared and alone. To wake up from anesthesia and realize there's no one in the chair beside your bed. To look at a stack of bills and feel your brain just shut down. When someone steps into that space with calm hands and a gentle voice, it's very, very easy to hand them the keys. What I wish I'd known then is this. Kindness isn't a qualification. Cooking soup, making phone calls, saying the right soothing words, that's not proof of character. It's proof of skill. And some people use that skill like a weapon. Ethan didn't change. He didn't flip. The man who made me soup is the same man who moved my savings into his account. That's a single person. He targeted me when I was vulnerable. He found a way into my house, my routine, my fear. And he used it. That's on him. But what I carry forward is on me. I don't let anyone touch my finances now. Not because I'm cold or cynical, but because I finally understand that protecting myself isn't selfish. It's basic. If someone is offended that you want to stay in control of your own money, your own accounts, your own signature, that's information. If someone says, you don't trust me because you hesitate to hand over access, that's information too. I didn't see that then. I see it now. I'm still paying off some of the mess he left. I'm still rebuilding the savings that used to make me feel safe. But I'm also rebuilding something else. The part of me that knows I can be soft without being open to every kind of harm. The part of me that believes I'm worth more than what someone can take. He moved in to help after my surgery. He left when there was nothing left to take. I'm the one who stayed.